Now, getting back to the main line of my presentation, what I'd like to point out is that in both the Cleese clip, that little skit, and in the Woody Allen one talking about the meaninglessness of the universe ever since Nietzsche said God is dead and so forth, both of those are pointing to the connection between a certain frame of mind that has brought about a disenchantment of the universe and our own current condition. That disenchantment is, I believe, close to the heart of our problem. It is an objectification of the world as an it rather than a thou. Our modern sensibility has trained us to look at the non-human as being an object that doesn't have an interior, and that only human beings have interiors. Only human beings have the capacity for meaning and purpose and conscious intelligence, while the rest of the world is an object for us to exploit and manipulate and use for our self-enhancement. I once did a thought experiment called the Two Suitors, where you had the universe as being approached by two ways of knowing, two epistemologies. And if you were to imagine this universe as being a deep-souled, deeply intelligent being who's being approached by two ways of knowing it, and the first suitor approaches the universe as being intrinsically lacking in any intelligence, intrinsic spiritual qualities, that it is incapable of meaning or purpose, and is essentially inferior to himself. We'll say the male suitor. We'll give it a masculine gender for not entirely arbitrary purposes, and the purpose of that suitor's knowledge, of his way of knowing, is to better understand, predict, and control the universe for his own self-enhancement. While the second suitor looks upon the universe as being at least as intrinsically full of intelligence and spiritual depth and mystery and value as himself. And the purpose of his knowing is not to control and predict and exploit, but rather to, in some way, overcome the boundary between subject and object, and through that participation in the other's being, bring about the possibility of something new to emerge. It's the act of knowledge as, in a sense, an act of wonder, of love. It's a relating to the world as a thou rather than an it. This is Martin Buber's distinction between an I-it versus an I-thou relationship. And in relationship to that point, I want to remind us of something that James Hillman said some years ago in his great essay called Anima Mundi, The Return of the Soul to the World. And he said this. He's talking about all the particular movements that are at work in the world, both collective and personal, and what was still necessary beyond those movements. He said ecology movements, futurism, feminism, urbanism, protest and disarmament, personal individuation, all these cannot alone save the world from the catastrophe inherent in our very idea of the world. They require a cosmological vision that saves the phenomenon world itself. They require a move in soul that goes beyond measures of expediency to the archetypal source of our world's continuing peril, the fateful neglect, the repression of the anima mundi, the soul of the world, anima mundi, the soul of the world. See, the soul of the world is something that doesn't exist for the disenchanted perspective. The world is mechanistic matter and energy that is moving and evolving randomly, out of which somehow we human beings, with our sense of consciousness and purpose